7. Pinpoint meteorologist Nick Allard.
It's 46 degrees in downtown Seattle. I'm Heather Bosch.
Subscribe to us on YouTube for our can't miss clips. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
The KIRO Radio text line is brought to you by State Roofing.
The Big Lead is brought to you by 3010 Weight Loss for Life.
The Dori Monson Show on KIRO Radio. This is The Big Lead.
Coming to you from the Carter Subaru studio. Welcome to The Big Show. Glad you're spending part of your Thursday with us. Oh, we've got a lot of stuff to get to. I'll talk about the head tax a little bit later today. This is the legislature. Did you hear how they're crafting it? That it would only apply to companies 150K in counties with a population of over 2 million. So it would just be King County that is affected. And it is once again an example of just how economically, not just ignorant, but it's like second graders. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, climate change is going to be used for raising taxes up in Snohomish County. Hold on. This is getting to be a bumpy ride. Let's get right to the Big Lead.
The Big Lead. I sense a Dori rant coming on.
I do want to congratulate, even though I despise what their objectives are, I have to congratulate local government, our schools, our social justice warriors. I have to congratulate you for the unbelievable efficiency that you have demonstrated in destroying our children. And like I said, I despise what your goals are. But the fact that you set out with a purpose to destroy our kids, and you have accomplished it with such remarkable efficiency, my goodness. You guys know how to achieve your goals. Brand new story today, Seattle Times. Here's the headline. Washington school leaders are worried about students' mental health. Now lawmakers are proposing fixes. Okay, so this is yet another example of something that I talk about all the time. They create gridlock. They make people sit in their cars for hundreds of hours a year because of the government-created gridlock. And again, that's a very clear means to an end. They want the gridlock to be so bad and so frustrating that people will abandon their cars and get on mass transit. And if that means that your hour commute is going to become 2 hours and you're not going to be able to participate in your family life to the extent you would like, that doesn't matter. Government wants you out of your cars. And if they have to destroy families to do that, well, they will. And so government says, they create the problem, and then they say, hey, give us more tax money to fix it. Like right now, they're talking about adding more traffic cameras to send out automated tickets in downtown Seattle. And they say, oh, we need this because there are people blocking intersections. Yeah, how about the pedestrians who are walking against the don't walk sign? Are they going to get any tickets? Are they part of the problem of why cars are in such desperate straits? Of course they are. How about the bicyclists who don't use the bike lanes but ride in the other car lanes? Are they part of the problem? Yeah. Will they get tickets? Nah. But they create the gridlock, and then they say, we need more money to fix it. They create the homelessness problem. Hey, let's legalize heroin and meth in King County. And then they get a study, miraculously, earlier this week that said they need another $1 billion a year to deal with the homelessness problem that they've created. And then you get to something that is far more serious and important. And look, homelessness is important. Gridlock is important. But our children are the most important things that we are stewards of. And it is our job to raise strong, confident, healthy kids. But government, public schools, social activists have conspired to create a generation of kids who are weak and victims and unhealthy, physically and mentally. And it is working. So they said that some schools can't pay for all the school psychologists that they need in the state. And so they've passed a bill that would tax us so that government can help with our kids' mental illness. So how did we get here? How did we get to having a generation of kids that are so mentally anxious, suicidal, have actually committed suicide, who are in such desperate straits? Well, that's where we've got government that has colluded with social activists. You know how many children actually believe the nonsense that the world's going to end in 12 years, and you have middle school and high school kids who say, I'm taking a pledge to never have children because they're all going to drown. And everybody, including the media, is perpetuating this absolute lie, but it's making the kids anxious. They all think they're going to die in the next 12 years.
How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. And yet, I'm one of the lucky ones.
They also have the kids convinced because there are a bunch of gun control advocates. And they haven't been able to control and confiscate guns to the extent they would like. And so they have started to mentally damage our children and convince them that even though statistically schools, public schools in the United States of America, statistically are the safest place for a child to be. You're much safer at school than you are at home, than you are driving to or from school, than you are on a sports field in some extracurricular activity. But they have the kids convinced that they're all going to be mowed down in a school massacre.
I would want the adults to know, like, we do understand. A lot of people are saying that kids don't understand, but the thing is, I don't need to understand all that much. All I really need to know is that kids have been dying in school in America for a while now, and I don't want to be one of those kids.
This is when they had a gun march in Seattle, and Q13 talked to these kids.
I don't like to think that my last words to my parents might be over text in my classroom.
They've convinced the kids that the safest place in America is a place where they should be riddled with anxiety. And I've talked often about just the absolute pure evil of these adults who have lost. They cannot win a war of ideas with other adults when it comes to climate change, when it comes to gun control, when it comes to all of this other nonsense. And so they use kids, they pollute their minds, they make them more anxious, more depressed, more suicidal than ever, and you add it all up. And starting very, very early, too. And I told you about the publicly funded preschool in New York City, and they have a new curriculum for the 3- and 4-year-olds. And one of them, it calls for gender affirmation or transgender affirmation for 3- and 4-year-old children. And in the curriculum, it reads, everybody has the right to choose their own gender by listening to their own heart and mind. Everyone gets to choose if they are a boy or a girl or both or neither or something else. And no one gets to choose for them, according to the curriculum. We're telling 3-year-olds this. And you wonder why kids are growing up so mentally screwed up? But our legislature, they're proposing fixes. If they just raise some taxes, they are going to work on the mental health of our children. It's like on Jason Rantz had a guest on his show. And it was a state representative. Her name's Monica Stoner. And she is proposing some things in the schools. And she was explaining that we got to get away from these ideas that only women can get pregnant? Jason asked her a great question.
Is it medically accurate to say a man can get pregnant?
Again, like, I'm not going to – it depends on the person's identity and orientation. So I'm not a doctor. I don't know how these terms line up.
This is a member of our state legislature. So we can't tell kids that only women can get pregnant? Well, it's a biological fact. The only way you can get pregnant is if you have a uterus, and the only gender that has uteri is women. But we can't say that because there's no absolutes. There's no, and the thing about kids, if there's one thing I've learned as a parent and as a coach, kids like to have rules, and they like to understand some facts about the world and not be told that nothing is real. But we've started with third graders. Hey, you pick your gender. It's a bunch of it's these social activists who are using government schools to make our kids mentally ill at an extent like never before. It's a state legislature that can't even say that you have to be a woman to get pregnant. Of course our kids are mentally ill because we've got the evil of social activism and government colluding to make them more confused and more screwed up than ever before. So when I see the story in the Seattle Times today that Washington school leaders are worried about students' mental health, school leaders, you better look in the mirror. You better look at the causes that you and that your legislature have allowed to infiltrate the schools to make kids more screwed up, more mentally ill. They think they're all going to drown in a cataclysmic flood if the school massacre doesn't get them first. But then we can give them anti-anxiety medicine. We can send them to the doctor, and at age 13, we'll cut the parents out of their medical lives in Washington State. And we can have this cult of the government, social justice, medical community. And the medical community is colluding with this as well to get into the schools, to convince kids that what are really kind of normal, natural issues that everybody's had to deal with for decades. Now, all of a sudden, it's, no, you're the wrong gender. Here, we'll give you some powerful hormones, and we'll change your life forever. We don't have to tell mom and dad. We'll cut mom and dad out of that. That's a cult. We've got a hospital in Seattle that has steered so many kids to that, and with the help of the schools. And then we wonder, Washington school leaders are worried about students' mental health. Gosh, you think? And yes, I'm passionate about this because there are few things. There's nothing more important than us being stewards of our children. And we have allowed, and even if you agree with what I'm saying, but if you haven't spoken out against all the crap that is force-fed to your kid in the schools, then we're all part of the problem. Anybody who allows this to happen, my kids are cool. My kid, I talk to them. They know what's going on. Yeah, but find out about their friends. Find out if their friends actually think they're going to drown in the next 12 years. So, yes, there is the reason why the mental health of children in Washington State is worse than it's ever been. And I have just told you exactly who is to blame. Which brings me, by the way, to the next story in my big lead.
The Big Lead, Bizarro World.
So this has been an issue that's been going on for a long time, but the King County Library System has just released its calendar of upcoming events at the Fairwood branch of the King County Library. And some people cannot understand why this annoys me. but it is an extension of what I was just talking about. So they say it's a pride party. I'm cool. There are some kids who are LGBTQ. There are. And they should never be made to feel any lesser than any other child. But this one has never made sense to me. So the first Thursday of every month, February 6th, they're going to decorate peace rocks and share a little kindness. That's cool. March 5th, show your LGBTQ plus spirit with a Sharpie tie-dye T-shirt. Again, people want to support their friends or themselves who identify as such. That's cool. April 2nd, use your imagination and create a mini drag queen out of recycled materials. That's not cool. I have a pretty good friend. He's gay. He and his partner, they really like going to drag shows. I don't know why. It certainly wouldn't be my form of entertainment, but they enjoy it. And I've talked to him about it. And I said, but there is no question that it is a culture that is just filled with really graphic body sex and heavy drug culture as well. And my friend said, yeah, absolutely. The drag culture is about real blue sex and drugs. Why is the King County Library System, which has Drag Queen Story Hour, how are we helping the children by, and by the way, this is aimed at children, tweens, and teens. So tweens are, kind of the 11, 12-year-olds. They say children in addition. So we're talking about 3 to 10-year-olds are the children. Tweens are usually 11, 12, and teens. And they, have the Drag Queen Story Hour for 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds. What is the societal benefit of that? And, of course, the answer is there is none. There is zero benefit to that. To get kids indoctrinated, to start getting, become Facebook friends and Instagram followers of people who are involved in a culture that if adults want to participate in that, if my friend and his partner want to go to the shows, none of my business. But in our culture, the government, there's a King County Library System. The government is continuing cult-like pushing of that on kids. And there's nothing positive about that. We can argue about whether there's something negative. I think there clearly is, because once you get into those Instagram accounts, you see exactly what is being pushed into our kids' brains, and it poisons them. Why would government do that? Oh, I forgot. Lawmakers are proposing to raise taxes to fix the screwed up mental health of our children. It gets them more money. Well done. And that is your big lead for today.
The Big Lead on KIRO Radio.
Woo. We are just getting started here. Up in Snohomish County, they want to raise your taxes because there's a climate emergency. Run for the hills. And we'll tell you all about it coming up next on the Dori Monson Show.